Call the meeting to order. One thing, this is not official,
Okay.
but this is the proposed, ABC schedule.
Okay. It's not
They're
official
Tu-
because it's not the
They're Tuesday nights,
Tuesday nights.
yes.
Okay.
Well, this is what they've come up with, that's when they can meet. So we have to determine if we can meet those particular dates
Yeah,
or if
I have
we
a conflict
can't.
with one.
I'm sorry?
I think we'll have probably a conflict or two, right? See.
Tom had also mentioned potentially throwing in Thursdays, which is going to be important for the police chief because he's actually working Tuesday evenings right now until he's up to speed. And I think he's one of the earlier budget presentations too.
Right at the moment. But that's the particular schedule, so take a look and see if we can do those particular dates.
I know that
If we
the
can't,
20th and the 18th are when the league readers are supposed to meet. And we have a really, really hard time meeting, but maybe we can go after, have a late something. And I won't be here for the October 25th. But I know all of these organizations very well, so that's fine.
oh, is that the, oh, okay, yep,
I've met with a lot of the people individually.
yep. So, take a look at them, and then we meet next Monday. So, let's see, if you have any feedback in the interim, let me know.
What time do you think, like almost all of these are when the league readers were supposed to meet, so what time do you think they'll end? They don't always normally end after 8, right?
Yeah, there's the times in terms of when those particular
They're all
things
start.
start.
But, okay. Okay.
So, just let us know. And especially if Tuesdays are not a good day, let us know that too.
Okay.
Other than that,
Anything else?
I think that's all I had administratively.
So, I have a PowerPoint presentation here, which is not very well polished, but it's the easiest way of showing. From the last meeting, I started working on a floor plan for an office building. And I spent an embarrassing amount of time struggling with it until, first, I apologize, I'm going to read these, or you can read them. All service windows open from an office to the lobby. So the service windows are the town clerk, tax collector. There's a service window for the selectman's office, and there's service windows from planning and zoning and building inspection. And the lobby connects to outdoors. It might be via vestibule in between, maybe not. The entrance to the lobby needs to be the obvious main entrance. That was one that was brought up with the existing building. You have a lot of people going to the first entrance they see, which is not the entrance that they need. All of the service window rooms also have exterior windows. The people in those rooms are the assistant town administrator, planning and zoning personnel, and town clerk, tax collector, and we don't want, they work full days, and we don't want them in interior offices where you can't see the sun. All the service window rooms connect to a common staff corridors, and the common staff corridors connect to outdoors for emergency egress. So I spent, as I said, a long time, embarrassingly long time, trying to come up with a floor plan, and no matter what I drew, how I sketched it, no matter what I thought of at 3 a.m., I ended up with offices that couldn't see the light of day. They were in interior or other problems. And eventually I got smart enough to go to graph theory to figure out why I was having such a hard time. So here's a simple intro to graph theory for floor plans. Here's a simple floor plan. This building has just 3 rooms. It certainly does have doors and windows, but for our purposes, we don't care about the doors and windows. We only care about where doors and windows could be. So any place where 2 rooms share a dividing wall, there could be a door or window there. Same thing with, so all 3 of these, there could be doors and windows between them. And same thing with outdoors. Every one of those rooms has a common wall with the outdoors, and they could connect to the outdoors. So a graph of that would look like this. You have room A, room B, room C. Those are the nodes, and these edges between them are the common walls that they share. And also there's the node of the outdoors. And notice that in the graph, it doesn't matter how these are arranged. A, B, and C, this is kind of, it looks like it's in a triangle. What really matters for analysis are the edges, these connections which represent the walls, the common walls. So if the graph of the rooms is planar, that means there's no edges crossing, then that'll fit on a single floor. And that was the problem I was having. So trying to build a graph of the rooms that we need and the critical adjacencies, starting from outdoors. We have a lobby, and we'll just pick one of them. We have a town clerk, tax collector, service room. It has 2 windows, but they're right side by side, so functionally they're like one. And there's a staff corridor, and we want to have the lobby, of course, connects to the outdoors. The town clerk, tax collector's room connects to the lobby. It also connects to a staff corridor, and it has a common wall with the outdoors, so it can have an outside window. And of course, the staff corridor has to have a common wall with the outside outdoors so that you can have emergency egress. You have to be able to get out of the corridors in an emergency to outdoors. And the lobby, we would also like to have, for emergency egress purposes, a connection to the staff corridor. And this is also the way that visitors who come into the lobby and have some reason to go into, it wouldn't be town clerk tax collector's office, but it might be selectman's office or PZB, can get into the staff corridor to go to those places. So we add another room, selectman's office, and again, that has the same kinds of connections, and everything is fine. So we add another room, PZB, and PZB can connect to the staff corridor, and it can connect to outdoors, and because we want that service window to connect to the lobby, and we have a problem. Can't connect to the lobby without crossing over the line that connects selectman's office to the outdoors. And it doesn't matter if we put PZB in here. You see now it can connect to the lobby, it can connect outdoors, but it can't connect to the staff corridor. Put it up here, again, it can connect to staff corridor in the lobby, but now it's an interior room, and that was what I ended up continually coming up with when I was drawing. So how do you fix this? Here's a plan that fixes it. And what's different is there are 2 lobbies, because once you get past service windows on a lobby, more than 2 of them, you run into that problem. So the design that I have does have 2 lobbies. I think it will work because we can put the access to both lobbies on the same building wall. It can be the long wall, the one that you approach. And the functions that we're talking about here, planning and zoning to one entrance, and town clerk, tax collector, and selectman's office to the other entrance. And these don't have to be very far separated, and I think with signage it would work. So let me call up
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Go back to that graph if you could.
Okay.
And I know you did this based on certain assumptions. What if you assume the selectman's office and PZB are the same entity? They're just in separate sections.
So each of these, the idea here is that each one of these service windows is in a person's office.
Mhm.
So PZB, the building inspector's office has the service window to the lobby.
But-
The planning and zoning administrator has a window to the lobby. That's what they have right now.
Mhm.
Town clerk tax collector has a service to the lobby, and selectman's office has a service to the lobby. So you're asking, can you share offices?
Well, you're keeping these as separate entities, just like TC has two service windows. Why couldn't there be two service windows, one for selectman's office and one for PCB?
In one room, one.
Yeah, they could have
So
a wall between them or, you know, a little partition or something.
that's the problem. As soon as you put the wall between them, you
Why?
now have a problem.
Why?
Um,
I must be
Yeah.
missing something because,
Yeah, why is your
Yes.
staff corridor the thing that's taking up all the light on the other side? Why is that not in the middle or in other places?
Well, the beauty of graph theory is that the arrangement of the graph doesn't matter. You can twist this thing all around, and the only thing that matters is the connections. And, I mean, I tried for a very long time drawing, both drawing on the computer, sketching, and waking up at 3 AM and drawing in my head. And with more than two rooms that had service windows to the lobby, I always ended up with one of these connections that I couldn't make.
I think, though, the assumption that the windows have to be in someone's office is the problem.
Yes,
Because we have talked about the planning, zoning, and building inspector service window being across the hallway
yes,
from their
we had,
office.
we had an earlier one where it was across the hallway. And if, that still brings it down to just, that actually puts the windows in the staff corridor.
Yes.
And right now, they don't have that inconvenience. See, right now, they both have a window into their, each of them has a window into their own office. And at their desk, when someone comes to the window that is supposed to be coming to their office to meet with them, from their desk, they buzz them in. And so this would be going back to a system where at least one of them would have to get up from his desk and go someplace outside of their office to answer the window. And, I mean, this is, if you want to impose that on them, then we can come up with a plan where you only need one lobby. I have a plan to show next where it does show what I'm calling two lobbies. And you can look at the pros and cons of this. I think, my thinking was that if the entrance to the two lobbies is on the same side of the building, it's the long side of the building, or whatever side it's on, it's the side that you approach as you drive to the building and park at the building, that then we should be able to have signage, and the entrances should be obvious enough that there are two entrances here.
Yeah.
Which one do I go to? I think the problem we have right now is when you approach the building, there's only one obvious entrance. And you don't really see the other entrances until you drive around the building. And I think I mean, Andy, you've told us how many people you have.
Oh, yeah, I would
Coming
say
in.
probably 75% of the people that come to the town offices right now stop in front of the selectman's office and walk back and forth and eventually wander to the appropriate entrance.
Why wouldn't you have like a hallway, like have it come in through one lobby and then, I just feel like we're very much focused on this one idea and these one set of constraints, so I'm just
Okay,
wondering why we're
so,
going into such detail.
I encourage you to draw your ideas and see what you come up with.
Takes a long time, I know.
And, I mean, I spent a couple of weeks
No, I know.
until I said, I know that this, I didn't even remember what draft area was called. But I remembered that there's a thing like this that can apply to this situation, so, because now you can read all about it on the web, which is what I did. And saw the applications for it. I even found that there were people today that have written software that designs floor plans where you start out by submitting the graph. You just draw the graph. Some of the first ones would only do a rectangular footprint, single floor. But you draw the graph, you assign areas to the nodes. So, you know, how big is the lobby supposed to be? How big is this room? How big is that room? And the software can draw multiple versions of floor plans that fit that graph. And more recently, people are trying to then work on that to, what about other building shapes beyond rectangles? I had no idea that people were writing software out there for doing that. So, let me try to call up.
I think it's important to keep in mind when you look at those service areas, what the individual departments are doing to planning and zoning. They need a window, but I would say, in my estimation, a small fraction of what they do is done through the window. People come to their office with handfuls of paperwork or want to get to plans, want to get to charts, and they need to be able to bring people quickly and easily into a room where they can spread paperwork out. The selectman's office, not really the case at all, but you still need the ability to get people away from the window and into a space. We deal with a lot of folks who are emotional, upset because they can't pay their tax bill, upset because they've got a deeding notice, upset because they can't figure out how to apply for elderly exemptions, that sort of thing, show up with a lot of financial information. So the service window is important, but both of those
Couldn't we have
departments.
places where people can come, like you could almost have for the other three besides the tax collector, a window or something where you could pick one of the three to buzz, and then that person could come, or, I mean, I think we're getting too into the weeds at the moment when, I think I don't know, and I guess you're wanting us to design it first, I still am struggling with that, that's our plan, so. Well, just, I understand you, that, I think you have a very set idea of how you want to go forward with who's gonna design the whole thing and then how that's gonna go forward, and I'm not sure we had decided on that. I feel like I would want to.
You're gonna need something to go to whoever you're planning to get some numbers from.
Right,
Because you can't just say, okay, I want a building, I want these spaces,
Right.
and they have nothing to.
so you're just trying to get us to understand what the basics are of the needs we need to request, or?
I suggested at the previous meeting that I did not think that it was made a good use of time and dollars you would end up paying the professional to try to convey to him how our entire employee group works,
Got it.
what the adjacencies need to be,
So you're just trying to get that covered now?
and then ask them to produce that.
Something like that.
Our experience in the past, I showed you previously
Yep.
what we came up with from a previous architect, which had what, to my mind, was a glaring, huge fault in it, where the building inspector, if the planning and zoning administrator wasn't there to answer the window, the building inspector had something approaching a 50-foot walk down a corridor around several corners
Right, just to
and
get there.
into another room. in order to answer that window.
Okay, thank you.
So, so this is not truly a floor plan, this is a more like what's called paper dolls. And this was almost finished at 1 o'clock this morning, and made a little prettier this afternoon. So these are just simple rectangles, everything is drawn on a grid. So all the rooms are on a half-foot grid, 6-inch grid, so everything is either a whole number of feet or half a foot. The exterior walls are all 12 inches, the interior walls are all 6 inches. So that's not what would actually be built. But this is a design with what I call the 2 lobbies. So there's 2 entrances here. The color coding is the blue rooms are PZB, the green rooms over here are town clerk tax collector. This sort of brick red orange is selectman's office. The very, very dark gray are common use rooms. The lighter gray is staff corridors. And this kind of lilac purple color is the public areas. And these dashed lines show how the public might enter for wherever they're going to. So this vestibule is turned sideways in through the door, through the second door, and over to one of the 2 windows for the town clerk tax collector. Or if they're here for the selectman's office, around to the window for the service window for the selectman's office. If the town administrator recognizes that it's a person that's here to see the town administrator or the assessor or whoever, then they're buzzed in through this door and they go see whoever it is they need to see, which might just be the town administrator, assistant administrator. This entrance, as drawn, there isn't a separate vestibule. It's a fairly long vestibule / lobby. And there's a service window near the end into each of these PZB offices. So one of these is the administrator, the other one is building inspector. And if they're there to see those people and get buzzed in, they come in through this door, and they can go here, or they can go see the other person. Or if they're here for a meeting, the PZB meeting room is across the hall. This is not a finished plan. There's definitely some problems here, some tweaking needed, particularly with ADA. Some of these corridor widths at the end with the doors doesn't meet ADA. At these ends, it needs to be a little wider. But that's tweaking. This area that's called copier, printer, postal machine, office supplies, and mailboxes is definitely not big enough. There are 2 stairways. These stairways are to get down to the basement. So staff, if they were going to the basement, will come in through this door and go down to the basement. If there was emergency egress from the basement, they would come up these stairs and immediately go out through the emergency exit door here. In this design, there are no dead-end corridors other than this short one over here to the staff toilet rooms. But that's only 10 feet long, where 20 feet is the maximum if the building doesn't have sprinklers. All of these others go to emergency exits. So these doors would all have the crash bars on them so that they'd be locked. You couldn't come in from the outside, but you can always get out from the inside. This kitchenette area in this design didn't really work out the way I was envisioning it. In the last meeting, there was talk about instead of having a separate meeting room and a separate a meeting room and a separate break room, making it one meeting break room. And at first, there was a suggestion to have the kitchenette also in that room. But that brought up that if there's a meeting going on, then someone else that just wants to get a cup of coffee can't get in. So the idea was to put the kitchenette outside, and it was suggested to have a movable wall between. But a movable wall, if you want to maintain speech privacy, from what I've looked up, that's a pretty expensive movable wall. They do make them, some of them come down out of the ceiling, they seal against the floor, they seal against the sidewalls, and I'm not even gonna bother to find out what they cost. So what I had envisioned and was kind of trying to work toward was to have this door, instead of on the end, to have it come in this way, to have a staff corridor across here, and across the corridor to have the kitchenette kind of in a alcove built into that corridor, so it kind of worked with the meeting room. If this was functioning as a break room, you could just easily go out the door when you pot of coffee or whatever, your microwave thing. But that didn't quite work out. I put an office up in here, which initially I called the select board office, because there was a question previously, would there be a space where a select board member could go and either work or meet with someone. And then I realized I left off the welfare director, so maybe that's the welfare director, maybe it's not. Down here is supervisor of the checklist and conservation commission. And it was actually my wife that suggested, they're not there all day long. Even though she frequently goes to the Conservation Commission office to do work, it's not 8 hours a day. So whether that was in the basement or not, might be fine. Supervisors of the checklist are not there 8 hours a day. It really is the staff that work there a full day that felt we really need to get on an exterior wall. So maybe those go into the basement. This space, the outside, and again, I said that the wall thicknesses are thicker than they actually would be, and all these could be tweaked a bit. But as drawn, it's 92 feet by 48 feet, which is almost 600 feet smaller than the building that we're renting right now. That's not as much smaller as I thought we might get, but I previously said I could see no way that you'd get below 4,000. We're here at 10% above that. Why, if we've taken out all of those large filing storage spaces, and some of what right now in the existing building is just empty space, why didn't this go down more? And part of it is that we've added a stairway here, we've added a stairway here. These right now are about 132 square feet each. We've added an elevator, and right now these dimensions I've drawn in, this is a passenger elevator. I know there's been talk about a Lula. This is a generous size custodial closet, but it turned out that that's what fit. There's just a single public toilet room, but it is quite generous. This is a room that meets ADA, even if there is a baby changing station in it. So that's a TBD, is do you want that feature, or would it be smaller? This is a drawing I can send you. My purpose here was to show, here is a workable plan. I think it meets pretty near all our basic requirements. It does show, actually it shows I did make a mistake over here. I intended this to be 6 feet wide, and it ended up being drawn at 5 feet. I guess I did that at 1 o'clock in the morning. I didn't notice that until this afternoon, but that's easily fixed because these rooms here, you could all just shove this down another foot. This vestibule doesn't have to be 16 feet long. Part of what I was trying to achieve here with the vestibule like this well, two things. One was to keep it entirely within the rectangular footprint. So there are no Ls, nothing sticking out. Other than, it's not drawn, but there would probably be a bulkhead for access to the basement, for exterior access to the basement, so that you could bring in heating or cooling equipment or elevator equipment or whatever. But that's the only thing that's sticking out from the rectangular footprint. And the other thing I was trying to do with the vestibule like this was, I didn't want to have the lobby area in front of tax collector and town clerk. This is about 15 feet wide. To have that the full width all the way up, because it really works best if you can get people in a single line. Like if you go into the credit union on 125, there's a single line. There might be multiple windows being serviced, but there's a single line, and that way the next person in line gets to go to the next available window. And that's helped by having this not 15 feet wide, but I think it's 8.5 feet wide. So the purpose is just to show, here's something that works. It definitely needs tweaking. I think the next step is, okay, start over and do something quite different. I think I ended up doing 5 different designs, and this is not the 5th one. There was someplace in the 5th one that I figured out how to fix the 2nd one, and this is actually a fixed version of the 2nd design. I think that's all I have about this. There are some questions about this elevator. As I know there's been talk about a RULA, and that's a topic to be discussed. As it looks like from my reading of the codes, we can't use a RULA. Probably can't.
That would be my reading of those
Yeah.
two. The only thing that draws my attention here are planning and zoning files. They have the largest amount of files in the building right now, and access them the most frequently. Throughout the day, Bill or Karen or the assessing people, if they're there, will be regularly going into the individual property files. And I don't know if that would fit in their offices, or how efficient it's going to be to have those in the basement.
Well, from our last meeting, as I understood the plan, essentially all records are digitized, including all of planning and zoning.
Yeah, there's some that can't be, right?
Well,
And
most of them can be at this point. At this point, there's a very small percentage.
And so there would be, they get people that come in with, rolled up drawings. So things that are active that they're working on this month and next month, and that may not go any further, you're not gonna digitize. So there's gonna be some stuff in paper form for a while. But when that building gets built, and those plans are a record of what was built, then I'm expecting that would be digitized.
I don't know.
It does mean that those people in particular need to have computers and displays that allow them to look at, architectural C sheets and D sheets and E sheets, which are, an E sheet is 3 feet by 4 feet. So you can't be looking at that on a 17-inch monitor.
In their day-to-day work, the primary thing they look at are the individual plot plans. People come in, they want, they're redoing their septic, they want to move their well, that sort of thing, and those files are very complex. We ran into this with Stratford Regional Planning Commission. A lot of those files have information from, some of them have copies of handwritten deeds. A lot of them have Polaroid photos stapled to pieces of cardboard from the 70s that we need to keep in perpetuity, and we may be able to scan. Stratford Regional had a very high-tech scanner that could take 4 or 5 foot wide documents, but they had a great deal of difficulty sorting through those and said that they would be able to do like 50 of them over the 2-week period they were here, so we had them do some other documents instead. But those are the documents that are, those files are the hardest to scan, and they're the ones that are used day to day by primarily planning and zoning, but by assessing, and particularly by the assistant town administrator who fields basic assessing questions, on a daily basis throughout the day.
I mean, those are things that can be digitized, and
Mhm.
the technology is there. And I've,
The general public also comes in to access those pretty regularly. We have any number of folks who will come in and say, hey, I want to see the file for my, they'll give you the map number and the lot number, and we'll find it for them and sit them down. And right now, under our observation, they
They
sort
go
through it. And, we would certainly have to have public computer equipment, viewing equipment available if we are going to put everything in the basement.
that's one of the things that's not in here. It's been in previous designs that I've done, where there was a 40-something square foot space, which was specifically for public access with a computer, a table and a computer, so that some member of the public, it was not out in the lobby. So it was a person that would have to see the assistant town administrator that, this is what I'm here to see, and this is what I want to look at. And then that person would be allowed to go to that place and show those files. It was a table big enough that they could be looking at paper, and there was a computer there that they could be looking at.
And that's essentially what we do with that central room behind the entryway to the selectman's office right now. That table with the chairs around it is surrounded by those tax maps and files.
Can I ask a question about stairs? So do we have to have 2 stairways? I know we have to 2 points of egress, right? But could the bulkhead be one, and then the area where the elevator is or something be one stairway, and have the bulkhead count as another, or does it not work? I just feel like we're giving away a lot of really prime real estate for stairs, where there's windows and nice
Yeah,
spaces.
with the 2 stairs there, we're fine. I need to look at the egress route, and it might require that if the stairway's at one end, the bulkhead has to be at the other end. Because I'm remembering a 75-foot dimension.
Okay, I'm just, seems like a nice place to put
So I
it.
need to check on that.
And then if we have the bathrooms or the toilet rooms all here, those people are gonna be walking a lot, is there any, did you do anything where you were trying to have the kitchenette with a, because that's plumbing with more?
I wanted to move it, yeah, that's when I was telling you that this didn't
Yeah,
kind of turn out the way I thought.
Yep.
And a possibility is just to take this meeting room, slide it down a little further, put some offices, other offices behind it, because the kitchenette, and then these are your plumbing. So you do want to keep those close,
right.
and these may not be quite as close as you'd like.
Okay.
But they're not at opposite ends of the building. I mean, you've seen designs where they were at opposite ends of the building.
The other thing is the town clerk tax collector, we wanted a little room for the,
Yes, so, speech privacy is another issue, and we've talked about it. It's one of my questions to talk about here.
Actually, put it like a wall here and have that be a
Um,
smaller.
but
Well-
then blocking off the, because those are 2
Yeah,
different windows.
At a previous meeting, one of the select persons looked at the design that had that extra room and said, we don't really need this, we can cut
Right, we
this
don't
out.
need 2, yeah.
And so I did.
Yep.
For speech privacy, there's 2 ways of achieving it, and really it's best if you do some of both. There's blocking the sound, which is having good doorways and good wall construction, good ceiling construction, good heating duct construction. And then the other is masking. And that's what you do, of course, right over here with that simple little box. But that's used a lot in offices now, not with little plug-in boxes, but with devices that go into the ceiling. They're smaller than that up there, or smaller than that. And they produce sound which covers the range of human voice frequencies. They're easily installed. They're originally designed to go into ceiling tiles like this. They're little tiny things, they weigh less than 6 ounces, some of them. They're controlled from one central source. They're daisy chained together with cable with RJ45 connectors, plenum rated cable with RJ45 connectors, and you can daisy chain them together. One of the brands I looked at, just one controller can control 120 of these things for a building up to 12,000 square feet. Each one of them can, from the central source, you can adjust the level. Each one of them can then be individually fine-tuned if you want to. And if you have somebody that's fussy, you can also put a control on the wall, which can control that. And that combination of blocking the speech from getting there, and then adding the background noise, then can make the speech unintelligible. And that's what you're really aiming for. These devices can also, at least the one that I looked at, can also provide background music, but it can also do public address if for some reason you need it to. It has a connection for that, and then all these little speakers in the ceiling can be public address. So what I was thinking here is that perhaps if this is about 7 feet wide, so perhaps there's a little bit of an ear that sticks out here and maybe sticks out here. This one is tucked over to the side. If you keep people waiting back here with some kind of signage or marks on the floor that says, wait here to be served, and you then have that masking noise, that may provide adequate speech privacy. And that's something that could apply, in all of the office space. Where this is used, these things are put in the offices and also in the hallways, basically throughout the building.
I don't see privacy being a huge concern for finance. It is to some extent for town clerk and tax collector. For the town administrator, it definitely is, because they handle a lot of, during the course of the week, I'm likely to have employees come ask me about how their health insurance works in regard to a specific condition they have, or disability questions, that sort of things. And I know that Karen in planning and zoning sometimes runs into that. People have a business idea or a piece of property that they want to talk about, maybe selling or maybe not selling, that they
Certainly.
I see Karen, take them out in the parking lot to talk with them right now or something like that.
We talked about, and it had been suggested that not all of the building has to have a reasonable level of speech privacy.
Yeah, just some.
I think there's two problems. One is if you don't do that, then you're limiting future adaptability. When you find that, we want to move so-and-so from here to here, things have changed. Doing different construction in different parts of the building may not save you as much as if you could just completely eliminate the need. Like right now, there's none of it in the building you're in.
So you're suggesting that we have something that's like a white noise machine, like in everyone's office?
That's the way it's done in offices now,
Yeah.
where you're looking for.
As a person who's really sensitive, those noises drive me crazy. So I'm just wondering, like, if you had somebody who, my husband wants to sleep alone every night, and it's very, very, like, I
I have tinnitus and I've never heard silence.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I was just gonna say, I have tinnitus.
And
I'm just
so
wondering, can you turn
tend
it
to
off
not
in
like
your-
those either.
Yeah, can you not have it?
But, I mean, we're hearing noise right now.
Yes, I'm very aware of
Not
it.
much. And they are fairly low level, they're adjustable.
Mhm.
The individual ones, this particular brand I looked at, and I've only looked at one,
Mhm.
each individual unit had dip switches on the back that you could then reduce it 3, 6, or 9 dB from whatever the central setting was. And then there was also a control you could put on the wall in an office, which could then control the ones in that office separately from everybody else.
Mhm.
And, I mean, yeah, I think the ideal is you really do an extraordinarily good job with the way you build your walls.
Mhm. That'd be much preferable.
And that also means that all your doors have seals on them, all the way around, including a sweep at the bottom.
Mhm.
The best ones are those when the door closes, then the sweep comes down and contacts the floor, so it seals that gap, which then is big enough that it moves smoothly over the carpet, and so forth. And that, I mean, this is a big issue in places like hospitals and medical
Right.
records and stuff
Right.
like that. I have no idea what these cost. I have no idea what the trade-off is between doing it by construction and blocking versus doing it by masking. It seems to me like maybe the combination might be the best. I think you don't want to end up with, if the town administrators and assistant administrators and maybe a few others, like the assessor, are really quiet and really have the speech privacy, and the personnel get used to it,
Mhm.
and now they go to meet with someone in some other room, and it doesn't have that speech privacy,
Right.
but they're expecting it.
Right.
You know, there's nothing like, I mean, when I was in the Army, we always had to answer the phone with, "This line is not secure," that was the last thing you said,
Mhm.
to tell the guy on the other end,
So you-
don't say anything that's secret.
These are details, I think we can.
These
focus
are
on later.
details, I
Yeah.
think,
I think adequate walls and doors would go a long way.
It's a huge improvement from what we have
Just
now.
based on what we
Oh,
have
yes.
now, yeah.
Yeah.
it's adequate adequate walls, doors, ceilings,
Mhm.
and ducting, whatever you have for ducting. I understand that's the problem in this room.
Mhm.
And there's, I suspect probably in the building you're in, that you could go up through ceiling tile.
There are 2 straight shot ducts, one on either side of that building, full length.
Full
And
length.
if people are talking under the
Yeah.
duct and the air conditioning isn't running or the heat isn't running, you can definitely pick up what's going on at the other end of the building.
The crude way they solve that is, rather than having all these little things in the ceiling, is they actually stick speakers up in that space.
Mhm.
But from what I've read, that doesn't do as good a job. It's cheaper, but it doesn't do as good a
Well,
job.
it's very handy for the town administrator, because I can go bang on someone's door when I realize they've been talking to their kid for 45 minutes.
So,
Ay.
anyway, so there's some ways of solving it. I think there's a trade-off between what you need to do in the construction and what you add to the building,
Mhm.
and how that works out as far as effectiveness and cost. I don't know yet.
Mhm.
But it's nice when you have more than one method of solving the problem, and you can pick a combination that's most effective for the dollar
Yep.
cost.
Makes sense.
I have a bunch of questions about the building design. From what was said last time, the current building has a number of these small offices And we know that the supervisors of the checklist use theirs, and Conservation Commission members, there's a few members that are in there. So there's people in there, I understand, every week.
There are people in the Conservation Commission office for limited periods of time, but definitely at least 2 days a week.
Right. And no one's there for 8 hours a day, so
No.
that was what my wife was saying, well, if it was in the basement, that would be okay. But right now, in this, with the basement, cemetery trustees, agricultural commission, heritage commission, recreation commission, and then also select board office. Are those spaces that, a possibility, if you have a passenger elevator, is putting them in the basement.
Yeah, the Agricultural Commission office has not been visited by the Agricultural Commission since we moved to the Daily Building. The cemetery trustees keep their records in the highway department.
Right.
At this point, we meet there.
Because cemetery trustee works there.
Yes.
And previously, Randy Stevens worked there, and Randy Stevens was keeping records.
And we came very close to losing all the cemetery files this past winter when the water pipes broke in the highway shed. They were
Yeah.
literally within inches of the flood.
So that's a question, is you might not always have highway department people in there. So cemetery trustees need a place to speak with.
If you're digitizing everything else, why can't you digitize those and then store the paper copies?
I started to already last year with the intern, the volunteer.
And not to throw something completely foreign into the mix, but to throw something completely foreign into the mix, a lot of communities put their DPW director's office in the town office, and I think our DPW director has a very crude, primitive office at this point.
Yes.
I know they sometimes prefer to be away from the fray and not interacting with other people unless they want to, but most communities put the DPW director in the town office building. Hopefully Steve doesn't watch this.
Well, I mean, I was working with what the board had said last time when the current Daily Building was up on the screen, and you were talking about, well, we don't need this, don't need this, don't need this.
Makes
So that's what stuck in. Cemetery trustees, should there be a space for them?
Do they need an office, or do they just dictate, like, the supervisor checklist, do they need an office, or do we say they just need a table and a filing cabinet?
The supervisors of the checklist need space for several fireproof filing cabinets and a computer. They have to update the computerized checklists fairly regularly. And hold open meetings to meet with people. Typically, they'll do that in the meeting space. But they're in regularly, and there are some very specific state statutes about what they have to have access to and what they have to do. So at the very least, they need a computer and space for 3 fireproof filing cabinets.
So I wonder if, like, if you're putting, either making one larger room that had a table with multiple computers and multiple filing cabinets, that any of the commissions could use. Like, I don't know that it's necessary to have separate spaces, or just a space that any of those people could use. Like that 7 by 11, 2 spaces, if those merged into one 7 by 22 space,
And then those
you could put a
paginate.
couple big tables in it, and filing cabinets were all around the outside, and everybody could have a filing cabinet, or 3, as the case may be.
Supervisors of the checklist, in previous designs, it was requested that they be as far away from everybody as they can.
Oh,
Because when they were doing their stuff, they talked a
Wow, interesting.
well, that's,
lot. I don't know if that's still true.
I
That's from
don't,
years ago.
then okay, then they can go sit in the basement, I don't know.
As I mentioned, the supervisors, they need access to a space where they can use a computer and where, 3 or 4 of them can gather around the computer. They also do a lot of copying and a lot of mailing
I don't see, I feel like we can merge those two rooms into one
So,
large room, and
um,
any of the commissions could use it.
Or if you stick them in the basement, they can have even a larger space.
So, yeah, a question is.
Are we heating the basement?
Well, if you stick people down, you're gonna have to. but-
Right, so that's the
If
whole
if you
idea.
have a basement, you have to either insulate the basement or you're gonna have to insulate the floor.
I have an
So
insulated
basements-
basement, I just don't have a heated basement, so it's very nice, lovely 55 all year round.
Um,
A little cold for all day.
So, right now, I mean, the basement is a lot of space. Um, From what I've read, this being a new government building, if the occupancy load of the other floor, being the basement, is more than 5 persons, then you cannot use a Lula.
Mm.
It has to be less than 5 persons, and there has to be no public use
Mhm.
in order to use a Lula in a new government construction.
So you couldn't really have offices downstairs.
So if you have a passenger elevator, then you can put as much office space down there as you want.
Mm.
Well, it's also an access thing as well. Because what if, when your supervisor checklist has a disability that doesn't allow them to go downstairs?
Right.
You can't say, okay, well, you're downstairs, you can't.
Oh, correct. If you're going to put office space like that downstairs, and that's the only place it's gonna be, then it needs to be accessible.
I think the same with the records, like, not that it's gonna stay this way forever, but right now, we have multiple employees over 70 years of age that
Mhm.
will need access to those records that we're discussing.
It's a lot extra.
Yeah, if you're putting records in the basement and you're paying people to go down the stairs and find the records in the basement, I think you gotta ask why you're doing that.
I think you, actually, for employees, I think you're gonna run into ADA compliance issues if you're putting components of their work that they have to
Yeah,
access in the
yes.
basement and you don't have the elevator,
Yes,
that's not gonna
yes.
fly.
Right.
Um, If well, I think I have down here is another issue is just the whole issue of should you be storing records in the basement?
Yeah.
Um,
Especially
And I
if
have not
water.
found anything that recommends that.
We're storing them in a steel can right now. so-
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's a case of.
If you look at our past,
It's an improvement, it's not good, but it's an improvement. But if it's truly archived records in the basement, then it doesn't have to be accessible. Functionally, I think it's no different than if you have them stored off-site. If they're stored off-site at Iron Mountain or any of the other companies that do that, and you need to see that record, the person who's in the wheelchair or whatever, just has to be able to send the email or a phone call to the storage place to send box 292 back tomorrow. And that's what happens. And so if they're in your basement, that person needs to be able to tell whatever people have been assigned to be file box retrievers to go get the file box. And that's no different than calling it back from a storage site in Manchester or
The,
Portsmouth.
the Heritage Commission had an assessment done of their archival needs, and one of the things that was said in there, if you're putting archival information in a basement, they said, think about this. You have a fire, where does all the water go? It goes in the basement.
Mhm.
So the thing is, if you've got something of value, you do not put it down there. But if you've got records that are also digitized,
Mhm.
then you're gonna be in 2 places. The thing is, if we're doing this particular thing, we're putting in the basement, and we're not gonna use the basement, then why are we even putting it in the basement? So I think we need to utilize the basement at some point, doing something with it, so.
With the Heritage Commission records, previously we did look into having a separate building. And it was gonna be a prefab concrete building, insulated concrete building. And which was big enough for all their records plus growth. My recollection is we looked at the price tag and said, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Because-
well, the structure is designed for record storage.
Yes,
And
this
you
was,
put stuff for the town clerk tax collector in it as well, but,
would have been a separate building, fire-resistant construction,
yeah.
designed for record storage, with heating and air conditioning suitable for record
Yeah.
storage, and alarm
Environmental
suitable for record
controls.
storage.
Road
With-
resistant, road
Road
resistant.
resistant, hurricane resistant,
Yep, hurricane resistant too.
and so forth. And we looked at the price and,
Yeah.
gosh, I think we were
It was expensive.
approaching 300,000.
I don't think it was that much, but.
But it was well into six figures. It was- it was
Okay, you and I remember it differently, but okay.
Okay, well, so if we were to put in a real, expand the expense to put in a real elevator, we could put records in the basement, we can move the commission offices and the select board office to the basement, possibly remove the second stairwell and replace the secondary roof with a bulkhead. That should knock off some space here, right?
I'm looking to see what other recent buildings have done, because they've all dealt with the exact same problems we're dealing with.
It'd be interesting to see, and I know you haven't spoken to him yet, Barrington's, Barrington's bigger than us, so what does their floor plan look
Yeah,
like?
they dealt with the same things.
The same thing we did with this particular structure, this particular building is based on the one from Wakefield.
I can send you the floor plan. I have the floor plan for the Barrington,
So we're trying to recreate the wheel, but,
the new one that I just finished.
so,
Everyone has the
Is-
exact same
is-
things they have to have.
Because they were, when they went out to bid, they had a design that was approaching 10,000 square feet.
Yep.
What'd they end up
So-
with?
I believe they're close to that, if not at that.
Oh, so they're not using space carefully.
well, if anything, it'll let us see what they're doing, maybe there's an idea in there. I don't know.
10,000 square feet, and it was still, how much? 2.5 million?
Something in that vicinity, yeah. I have the floor plan and the breakdown. I'll email you tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be great, just to see what they went with.
Yeah, I'd like to see that, because I have their previous design that they went out to bid with.
So they constructed again? What have they done? They got the money, but,
They are complete now. They moved in last week.
So now we could
Just
just
in the
go
process
in like
of
people.
moving in now.
so if we just show up at the door and just say, hey,
I feel like maybe we
We
should.
can do that. Connor assured me that he would welcome us individually or as a group and just give
Okay.
him a little bit of notice. I can see if they have an evening other than Mondays when we meet for BOS that they're open. I know they've got one late night. It may well be Monday night.
how about Friday afternoon?
Check on that.
One of the issues with a passenger elevator, it does cost more to install. It does need a deeper pit.
Yeah.
I think it also needs higher overhead, but it also needs a more frequent inspection.
But the mechanical room's in the basement in this particular example, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if it was a Lula, I would put the mechanical room in the basement. If you're going down to a basement, you might as well, I don't see any reason to do machine roomless. The other thing I came across with one company making Lulas is they had a design that was entirely non-proprietary. So the components did not have to be purchased, if you were doing a repair or replacing components, they didn't have to be purchased from that elevator company.
Like from Otis or?
So exactly. Whereas most have to be, all the pieces have to be purchased from that one company.
Can I ask you a question, John, in terms of the two stairwells? You've got two doors that go on the outside. Can't you get rid of the one and just go through the stairway and then out? just regularly?
Like right here, so walk through this way.
Yeah, and just go out that way? Why do you need the second one? Is there some rule or something?
You could, the problem would be, what I was thinking is,
Yeah,
so what if we have a fire in the basement?
yep,
And there's a fire in the basement, there isn't a stair, a door at the bottom.
there isn't. Why isn't, there should be.
Um,
There should be.
I think there's a door at the top.
But there should be one at the basement, I
There sh-
would think, but,
Well, okay, so maybe there's a door at the bottom also, but for some reason that door's not closed, or something stuck in it or whatever, and there's smoke coming up the stairway.
okay.
That was my thinking, is that when you want to get out, you get into a corridor that leads to outside, and the next door you go through, you really want to be out.
I see.
There are rules about intervening rooms where the emergency egress has to go through another room, so this would be going through another room.
Okay.
So I think that this is the sort of the safest,
Okay.
guaranteed to meet code way of doing it. And this also is so that if you are coming up from the basement, you don't have to go into the building to go around.
Mhm.
So that's like our stairs, when you go down the stairs here, you can immediately go out. There is, for that reason, you don't have to go back into the building.
That's an important consideration for that active shooter strategy and active shooter drill too, that you don't have to go into a main corridor or a main public space next to the building.
That you're able to get out as,
As quickly as possible without being into open space.
The other thing in terms of, that you mentioned in terms of vestibule, you're assuming that this is a square or a triangle, rectangle, excuse me, but you could have the vestibule outside of that particular thing, save some space interior.
yes.
For both of those structures.
Previous designs that we've published had the vestibule
Yeah.
projecting outward.
Yeah,
And with recent talk, there was a desire to keep this as low cost as possible, meaning in one of those was keep just a simple rectangular footprint.
I understand that, but if you had it outside, because, okay, you've got people coming in, it's raining outside or snowing outside, you need like a porch or something
Yes.
to divert that
There-
stuff,
there-
so,
There needs to be a roof over this
okay, all right,
entrance.
all right.
But that doesn't necessarily have to have a full, foundation in it and be like an entry room.
Okay.
You could also have just a small roof over it, and it could be an inset where you actually come in a little bit, and there's the doors. Kind of like on the front of the old schoolhouse
Oh, okay, yeah,
at Town Center.
yeah, it's recessed.
It's recessed,
Okay.
of course not with those stairs.
Well,
Um,
back then when it was built, it was
So-
fine, so, you know.
I do not think that it makes sense for us to try to create the architect's drawing. It's just I think it does make sense for us to be puzzling over
Yep.
the details of how the layout works, to get to a point where we could give this to whatever design service you've selected. And, this is what we're thinking, this is what we like, and then they make all those walls 4 5/8 inches thick, and they make the exterior, and so everything is as it's really gonna be.
It's the content and it's the adjacencies.
Yes.
That's nothing that they would know unless we told them. But if we show them something that has those built into it,
So I have some more questions. It sounded like the answer on commissions and committees was, well, if they're in the basement, then we can give them as much space as they want. Otherwise, it sounded like ag commission, no.
I think we think of having one space that like a lot of people could use, like maybe a select person could, or like ag commission, or the historical society or whatever, they could all like, you could use that office, but it wasn't just for one group, you know what I mean?
Okay, so
That's what I was thinking, I don't know what everyone else is thinking.
I think the way, the scheduling that I've observed, that wouldn't cause any problem at all to have one office that each group should.
Yeah, I mean, it's really rare.
There's never any overlap.
In terms of tweakages, just looking at this, and thank you very much, you spent an awful lot of time.
Yeah, it's a lot of
And
work,
hopefully you can get to sleep, so you don't have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
and thank you for puzzling over
If
it.
you could switch the select board office, even if it stays, with the stairwell, so you push the stairwell back to the corner, select board up, you can get rid of that whole corridor there and use that space for something else. Because the egress to get out of that select board office to the outside is now even
Mhm.
gonna be shorter. Then you can make the meeting room, break room a little bit bigger, possibly,
Mm.
but take that and move it, like, switch spaces with the stairwell. So the
yes.
corridor goes back
Well,
only to the,
the-
yeah.
Bigger bathroom too.
If you're talking about emergency egress here,
Yeah.
it's just right out there.
Yeah, I know that, but get rid of, if you get rid of that one,
Better bathroom.
Yes,
stairwells,
That is nice, isn't it?
So-
hallways take up so much space if you
yes, I know
get
that.
them.
So, yes, the stairway could be pushed back, bring the office forward.
Yep,
And then do away with this,
yep,
and that lets you use this. And then we just need to make sure that
it just goes back.
this
Yep.
is no more than 20 feet.
Yep.
Because you can't have a dead end, if you don't have a sprinkler system,
Yep.
you can't have dead end hallways more than 20 feet.
Yep.
Because when the building's filled with smoke, and you picture someone making a wrong turn,
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be, because you'd have the 8x8, so it's 8 feet down that corridor, plus probably another 3 or 4 feet to get to the stairway entrance, so that's 12 feet, so it should be fine. But,
uh, that would not be their emergency, that would not be their exit.
who?
If someone goes down this corridor.
Oh, no, I understand
In
that.
mistake, and this corridor is dead-ended.
Yep.
We just need, they're not then gonna go out this way.
Why couldn't they?
Because in an emergency situation, when this building is filled with smoke, and they see that that's the door to the stairway,
Yep.
they don't remember that, oh yes, I can go into the stairway, and then there's another door.
Okay.
And instead, they're gonna turn around. And that's why there's the limit for the 20 feet.
Well, it would only be like
But
12 feet.
yes, so you can do that.
Well, and I'm not trying to be tweaky-ish, but, you know, if you can eliminate that stuff, maybe you can make the footprint a little bit smaller, especially if you're moving those things to the basement.
I think at this point, trying to do small tweaks to make the footprint smaller is wasted effort. There's other pieces here that are definitely not big enough. This is definitely not big enough. This is a less than ideal design here. And it's not going, I mean, eventually when we get to a design that you say, yes, this is ideal, we're now just gonna tweak it a little bit, I think that's the time when we do those small things. But Scott, that is a good idea.
The other
I think
thing,
said select board from the basement too.
they could,
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying, if that's even still there, so, you know,
I think you could make up for the copier, printer, postal machine lack of space possibly by, if you're gonna have a passenger elevator, you could put custodial supplies in the basement probably easily as well.
Yes, if this is a passenger elevator, then this custodial closet can get much smaller.
Come here and the door's
you
going.
just, well, you need space for this custodial person to have all their cleaning stuff on this floor. You don't want them going up and down,
If you
like
have
a floor
the-
buffer or whatever.
The previous designs we had, the expectation was that on each floor, we had a very small custodial closet, with the important thing being the sink, a mop sink. And that there was in the basement, there was a very large custodial supply room, and there could be a service cart there. So most of their service is done from wheeling out that service cart, taking it up in the elevator, and going around and doing whatever kind of servicing needs to be done.
Okay.
And that way, the storage room in the basement was big enough for bulk purchases of toilet paper and soap refills or whatever else. And it was just the mop sink, basically, that you can't carry up from the basement. And so this was then cut down to half that size, or maybe even smaller, quite small. So, question about the welfare director's office. Previously decided that, yes, we need to have a welfare director's office, even though currently it's not used. Should that be large enough for the welfare director to meet with one client, or two clients, or would meetings be done in a separate meeting room?
So
Right.
where does she keep her files now?
Right now, there are 2 filing cabinets in her office with a small desk, but as you said, she
And
has
she
not.
uses those?
Yeah, she has not been there in, as near as I can tell, 2 years or better. And if there's a need for the file, she will typically call myself or the assistant town administrator.
So if she had those files in an office in the basement, she could meet with them in the meeting room. Because she usually, if she meets with somebody, it's usually after hours.
Certainly,
And it needs to be
everything she
discreet.
does is electronically and after hours at this
Yes.
So
point.
she could easily, that's a great point.
It needs to be discreet.
As long as you can lock the door.
That's why I'm asking the questions, is because if her office, the office needs to be large enough for her to meet with, say, 2 people, then the whole thing needs to be ADA accessible,
Yeah.
both for the director and the clients,
Mhm.
and that makes it pretty big.
But if she can use that meeting room,
That's great.
But if she meets with people in a meeting room, okay,
and
separate
And I
meeting
think
room.
you're saying she doesn't need an office, she just needs she just needs space.
place to meet.
Yeah.
But if your
And a
office is in
filing
the
cabinet.
basement, yeah.
Yeah.
And tell her I'm not very happy. She hasn't spent any money out of that last fiscal year, so tell her I'm not happy about that.
So,
Two more good
We've
things.
started the new fiscal year off with a bang, so.
just to be,
Oh, great.
just to be certain, in previous designs and in this design, we have separate public and staff circulation paths. So we have these corridors that are for staff only, or members of the public that have been allowed in for special purpose. And that was recommended for security as well as convenience. But it does take up space. And just wanted to be sure that everybody agreed that, yes, that was still worth doing.
I think it's important because maybe if you're gonna have the records, the bulk of the records in the basement, it's not as much a concern. But if you've got people walking around, and doors are left open, that sort of thing, files can disappear.
And I know this is nitpicky, John, but it's irritating the heck out of me. That bathroom, those 2 bathrooms that you're talking about,
Yeah.
can we, see that corridor? Why do we even need that corridor?
I agree.
And just flip the bathroom and have the door, You know?
Yeah, so,
It's not wide enough then.
we could go all the way to, like, the arrangement the library has, where they have a toilet room that opens into the children's area.
no, we don't want to do that. But this is a corridor just for the staff.
I think it's because it's not wide, this width is bigger than this width, but I keep thinking the same thing, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that could be reserved for board members only, that larger bathroom, so,
Oh, you mean have this one? Well, I mentioned the shower, for people that actually exercise on their way to work. so
This
you can throw a shower
is
in there.
this is not large enough for a shower room. These are large enough to have,
Both have shower rooms.
these are both
They're
ADA
small.
accessible. They're large enough to have the door opening inward.
Yep.
And that's the size.
Mhm.
There are some arrangements where you put toilet rooms back to back, and
Yep.
you have an offset wall between the 2 of them.
Yep.
I think there's a pair at the current building that have that design. You don't have to have all of the toilet rooms ADA accessible, but these, both of them are. Shower room, I didn't even think about that. Is that something that you want? Because that's,
Well, if you made that corridor into part of the bathroom, you could probably fit the shower room if you
That's what
moved
I
it
just
out a
said, you
little
just said
bit.
you can't do that.
Why not?
I don't know.
No, if you want to take this toilet room and make it bigger
Yep.
and have the door there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes, you
you
can
have
do
a shower on the side of it.
that. Yeah, so,
I think that's,
I think it depends on how much it costs.
I agree, but if you have empty space, I'd rather use empty space to make sure we have.
I mean, I don't have a problem with making the toilet room bigger and it having empty space in it, and someday if they wanna put a shower in it, great, but I want to know the price tag of an extra shower is.
I agree, that's a great point. I just think that encouraging that,
Well, if you
not
put
using cars is great.
drain in the floor and give them a garden hose, they can go and spray themselves out.
I'm okay with that.
now,
Exterior
there
shower,
are,
those beach showers.
Shower at home.
Because that's awesome in New Hampshire.
a number of published designs online of, how do you fully meet ADA and fit a shower into the toilet room, make it a full bathroom.
I'm only saying it because it was something that when it's available in a building, people change the way that they go to work. So that people that might not have wanted to are willing to now go for a walk at work time or take a bike to work or whatever.
Well, beyond that even, if it's a possibility, I think it's worth looking at. I have had several situations since I've been here, I haven't been here long, where I've had to excuse people to go home for
Reasons?
personal reasons. It
It'd
doesn't
be nice if you could
require
push
them
that.
to clean up.
And if you think about it, you go outside to do work and you do something and there's no place, I mean, I get
Too
you.
much information, Andy, too much information. Thank you very much.
It's not a terrible idea.
Okay, so,
I didn't say it was a terrible idea, I just asked what the price.
Yes,
tag
of
was.
course, of course.
next question is about, what arrangement should be provided for the secondary response to the selectman's office window when the primary responder is not available? We've got two different, in the current building, you have CCTV,
Right, and I run around.
and the TA just go through the hallway to the lobby. In the Stevens design, they were connecting doorways from office to office, from finance office to town administrator to assistant town administrator. They were all daisy chained together,
Sweet, like when you have a
Yeah,
shared
like-
hotel room.
like the hotel room suite.
I think we just put a buzzer, a little
So,
bell.
But that's what we have now,
You hear it.
and if Denise isn't there, I run through the middle room and come around, or if I think I recognize them on the video screen, I just open the door outside my office, see what they need.
so this is kind of like what you have now.
It's a little closer, got
Yeah,
a-
it's the whole building or closer.
yeah, I've got a good distance now between us, but.
So how we keep it fit.
So this is a little bit closer. So this is a little bit of an improvement.
Yeah.
And depending on how thick the walls were, I could just
Oh, there.
yell through the wall to see Denise was
No,
there.
they're thick.
Not with these walls, Andy. Not with these. These would be good walls.
Okay.
Right now, we can yell back and forth quite
Yes.
easily without using intercom.
Sounds super professional.
I've talked about the speech privacy, talked about the multipurpose meeting break room and the kitchenette. Another question is, we've got a meeting room here, which is, well, it's multipurpose meeting break room, and it's shared. We have a meeting room down here, which is PZB only. Do we need both?
I asked that last time, because I said, couldn't we just have one big meeting room where you have like if you needed to have it broken up like you do downstairs, but that way you have much bigger space if you need it. But then somebody said something, but I think that's when it was the kitchenette too, so maybe if you have a kitchenette and you can have a break or whatever. I just like the idea of being able to make it into two if you need two meetings at the same time, but also making it really big if you need to have a really big meeting,
You could put a divider, assuming there if you wanted.
instead of a wall.
I think the other important thing that the meeting rooms are used for right now in the town office, we have the small one towards the front of the building and the larger one in the back. It's a true meeting room, but both of those are used for projects.
That's
You know,
nice.
if we have just simple things like putting copies of the budget together for the budget committee and board of selectmen, requires a lot of space to get those laid out and stapled. I know the fair committee, that sort of thing, come in and use those rooms to spread paper out and
So could
put
you
things together.
accordion close that and have that one room be for that, and then you can use it in the meeting room?
I would think so.
And then if you happen to have a meeting where you want to have a big one?
I think the issue you run into again is the speech privacy. So if PZB is using this and they're meeting with someone,
But the likelihood that there's somebody in the other room that you need to have speech privacy from is really small.
But if we're having the welfare director use that meeting room at the top for her discrete conversations,
Thanks for coming.
that's.
Did you have anything you were hoping to say, or was there?
Oh, no, I didn't think we were allowed to speak.
Oh.
you're not unless the chair allows you to.
I had made it clear in the, I think one of the emails that I had sent you, that the agendas for these meetings didn't include citizens' comments or dialogue, so
But
you
you're
you
here.
may have to
so-
sit through it and not
There's
speak.
only one person here, so.
She needs to ask the chair if she can make comments. It's up to
She needs
her.
to ask the chair if she's allowed
People.
to talk.
Yeah.
No, can she make a comment?
Okay, would you like to ask the chair? if she's allowed to talk?
Hey.
I have a question.
Would you like to ask a question?
I would like to ask.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yes.
See, it's easy as that.
I just wanted to leave without having a chance to speak.
Well, thank you. So where is this proposed to go? What's the location?
The hope was to have the whole town center be connected.
I think John has a graphic, because he's
Oh, yeah.
looking,
There's a graphic. So kind of behind the parish house, behind and to the left of the parish house, where there's a bunch of trees around there.
Oh, that whole wooded lot between the
Yeah.
Old Town Center.
But offset behind, like,
And so here's the existing town center buildings.
Yep.
The town hall, tool shed, the library, the museum, and the annex. And the town property extends all the way over to the parish house.
Correct.
And it goes almost twice as far back as what's shown on this plan. Here's the cemetery back there, with the 25-foot setback around the cemetery. We have talked to Department of Transportation about getting a permit for a second driveway, which if we were allowed, it would be opposite Wednesday Hill Road, so there could be a second driveway in here. So that in the future, you could have a loop connecting. And so we have all of this space.
And the reason that we were hoping to use that is, first of all, to have the continuity of having, you could come and do several things. You know, go to the library, go to the town hall, do that kind of thing. Also, we're saving money on parking spaces because we need the parking spaces at different times. So you have one parking lot that's shared throughout different times. And you also save on things like wells and that kind of thing because these are small buildings that need updates. So you're just saving a lot of money by having it all in one location. That's what we've been thinking about.
So where's the woods?
all
Okay, so
of that is woods right
The
now.
building
this
would be
is
like,
wooded all the way
Oh.
to there.
do you have the graphic that you can show of where,
Where the building would
Yeah.
actually be,
Like
like
Sally.
John's got everything in
the orientation?
south facing.
South
I don't
facing.
know.
It's at an angle, so it's it would be angled.
That one doesn't have.
Yeah, no tree line. So there's a
So
tree line.
here's the tree
woods,
line.
And it'd be like here,
So,
or here.
see this,
Then
this
where's the parish house?
Behind the
Paris
shadow.
Place is over here. So this tree line comes all the way up to the street. So everything over here is tree covered right now.
Right.
And it's just on the inside of this line, this area in here is where there's very few trees.
Right.
So all of this is currently forested. The tree line over here isn't shown, but, you know, right in front of the parish house, there's just a few
So
isolated trees.
may I approach the screen?
Sure, yeah, yes.
Chairman?
You approach the bench.
So you said it's 98 by 40, no, 90 by 40.
48.
92 by 48.
Yeah.
So it would go, are you thinking it's gonna go like in here?
More, yeah, more like here, right? Is that
And-
what everyone's thinking?
Yeah.
So the
Let's see
long,
if-
the long
let me see
side
if
will
I
be
get another-
like this?
And the parking area will extend and then, I think, go through.
So, let me see if I
Or at least the road will connect. That'll make it easier for
So-
snowplows and.
He's got one of the things that you're looking for. He'll find it eventually.
can. So.
Yeah, if you
here's
have
one
a-
with- Here's one with a new well,
Yeah.
possible location for a new well.
So
Let's see.
the outer dotted lines, you have to stay outside of that.
Yes. We
Oh,
can't
the
build
new well.
inside of it,
Yeah, it's a sanitary protective area where it says right there,
or,
can't have
Yeah,
like a
so-
septic system.
So around a well, there are some offsets from that well. The radius depends on how much water you draw from the well. So for the uses that we have at the town center, including an office building, and allowing for some expansion, you have a 125-foot sanitary protective radius. Inside of that, you cannot have any septic components other than septic piping, which would be restricted, have to be outside of the 62.5 foot. And surface waters have to be, as well as parking and roads, have to be more than 50 feet away from the well. So the current well is right down here. So the current well, you can't expand the parking lot because of where the current well is. Because you're not supposed to have parking or roads within 50 feet of the well. So the site will eventually need a new well.
Okay, but generally speaking, the proposed location would be like this.
The discussion has been about removing the trees in this area back,
Right.
somewhere in there, yes.
So, like, 90 feet would come out to like where?
So.
Like if you could draw a square,
Yeah, so each of these is 10, each parking space is drawn here is 10 feet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So from here to there, that's 90 feet. And this is 62 feet all the way across. And we've worked on designs where the building is out front. We've worked on designs where the building is pushed back. And I don't know if I've moved old stuff like that. This laptop. Let me see, town center folder.
I was just trying to figure out how close it would come to the parish house.
So
Potentially.
You could build touching the parish house. If you're
Technically,
just looking at what are the
You want to.
restrictions, where can you
but where are
not
we
build?
thinking about it?
I don't think we've gotten down to the point where we're doing
mm,
plot plans and laying out where the building might go.
Okay.
But,
Well, you know why I'm asking that.
but over
You're
here.
talking about the butter, right, so the question is,
So,
if you were thinking of building something, I think when you first originally, one of the things we said was this was actually, we're planning on putting the town hall over here. If you built the butterflies, I don't know where the parking would go for other people. Because this is your setback, if you have this and you're attaching it, and there's a town hall here, and then this parking, I don't know where everything would fit. I think you had originally thought this whole area was free, because you had mentioned using the annex.
Yeah, we're not interested in the annex anymore.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna be creating any additional parking?
We are for the town hall, but it wouldn't be enough for, because you were talking about the numbers you could get at the butterfly. I don't know where the parking would go if you had a butterfly sanctuary. Like, you could have some share, but there's nowhere near enough if you have, a bunch of families come to visit.
So you're gonna be adding on, it wouldn't, no parking would end up over here, it would just be adding on to what you already have, or?
Yeah, except for that there would be the road that would connect, because the goal
Okay.
is for snowplows and emergency access to have that, to not have to back out.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, so unfortunately that limits that space. That's why we're interested to find out what your plan was, just because to see if there's any way to.
So, since the meeting, we've done some just brief talking, and I don't know if you must know about the monarch butterfly that's now endangered.
Mhm.
So, learning about what's happening here and that topic, we thought, what if we just scaled it way, way back?
Okay.
At least for now,
Mhm.
and just focus on endangered species and do something much smaller that came off the back of, maybe we had a vestibule and then came off the back of the parish house. I don't know if we would be incurring the same amount of visitors, it would be nice.
Right.
But we were hoping that we'd get away with using some of the church parking. I don't know if there's a way to include the plans for your new building
Mhm.
and connecting some kind of parking opportunity
Mhm.
for both.
Mhm.
So you're interested in using the parsonage?
Parish.
Yeah,
Parish.
parish.
Yeah.
So one of the things I know that you'd mentioned is that when you showed the plan, it included us rehabilitating, which we explained was an incredibly costly venture, not one we're interested in. Is there plans to rehabilitate that yourselves, or what is the?
We haven't talked about that. We can put our heads together again and kind of revisit that. I think there was, plans that would help financially offset that with what we intended to use the building for, because there's other space that we won't be needing.
Right.
And that could be a way to generate income in different ways, so.
They would be parking too.
Oh,
That's the tricky, yeah, no, I'm just trying to think of how to make that work, and when you're saying that, I'm thinking if those people want to park somewhere too. Parking is a huge challenge.
Okay, well, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but, so I guess if we were to rethink what we're thinking, we would come back to a general town meeting.
Put it on the.
Select board meeting, if you call Denise or I, we can.
Put it on the
And
agenda.
to kind of present, okay, maybe thinking how we can be included in this new plan with this new building.
Mhm.
Can we bring that up, or is it like on the down low?
No, I think that's,
But we're recording it.
yeah,
It's
no, I
all
think that's
public.
fine. I guess one of the things we discussed at the last meeting was the free funding to remove the building. So there's I'm just letting you know, that's an expensive venture to rehabilitate that building.
Right.
And to get, so if that's the path
She
you're
has the
on.
report, she has the.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
then that's
So
great.
she knows the cost.
Oh, right, but so, I mean, would you be like knocking down the parish building and?
These are all things we're discussing in the future, but we just found out there's funding to remove old buildings that are not something the town is gonna be repairing. And so to have it be something the town's in charge of, it has to have benefit to the taxpayer. So what we've tried to figure out is how to deal with that. So-
Take advantage of that
Right,
program.
right. So if someone wanted to use it, it would definitely have to be including that care and that expense. That would not be something we'd wanna have on the taxpayers. Whatever cost.
Okay.
While the board is looking at this slide in particular, could I make a couple of comments?
Please?
And it's not regarding what you have, but I had talked to DPW Director Bullock with regard to conversations he had had with Brian Schutt from New Hampshire DOT as to what the ramifications of getting a driveway cut in this area were. And Brian had said that it clearly had to be across from Wednesday Hill Road, directly across. In talking to Steve, he had some notes that he had from Brian. It would also have to come and form a T and take right now there's sort of a bell shape almost coming in there. That would have to disappear with a T, which has some significant expense to it before DOT would grant the driveway cut on the other side. There's also a well right about here that's on the DeBerto property that feeds a rental duplex there that is remarkably close to the road as it stands now, and both Steve and Brian are of the mind that you would have to move that well to correct the Wednesday Hill Road junction, which would require property owner agreement, and as Steve pointed out, he said the main reason that that well may be where it's positioned as it is because the only place they were able to put it. So there were, not insurmountable problems, not insurmountable expense, but
Extra.
as I suspected from talking to a couple other people, DOT did not show up and say, yeah, we'll give you a driveway cut whenever you're ready to go. There's going to be some ramifications and problems and expense.
That change to Wednesday Hill is new, because we specifically asked about that the last time we met with him,
Yeah.
and he was not recommending or requiring that.
Cool.
The one thing that he was saying about the way that Wednesday Hill comes in at this angle is that it needed to be opposite Wednesday Hill Road. And I tried to peg him down to, okay, how do I draw the geometry to
Right.
show what is opposite? And it seemed like it came down to, the DOT engineer will stand out there in the road and say, this is the place.
Great.
And
You were the one.
he couldn't tell me anything where I could then draw the geometry and say,
Right.
this is where it would be. But in our drawing, as far as the location, sort of left and right in this picture, there's a long enough driveway coming out that it can have a little S bend to it one way or the other.
Okay.
But we specifically asked about this change to the Wednesday Hill intersection, and the answer we got several years ago was no.
Okay.
We would
These
not
were,
require-
these were concerns that Steve had shared fairly recently from conversations with Brian, but
Yeah, they definitely don't like intersections like this.
Well, it's hard to see,
Yeah, yeah,
because if you're coming on Wednesday Hill looking for going to the, traffic coming from the right, you're
yes,
at a weird angle,
yes.
Mhm.
so,
And depending on what vehicle you're driving.
yeah.
It's weird to have so many weird angles in that road right there coming up,
Yes.
the triangle and all that.
Well, the same thing with the intersection on the Hook Road.
Right.
Without that whole, it's
Right, right.
totally
Yeah,
bizarre.
that's.
Cowpaths.
But back when you drove your horse and buggy,
That worked
made
fine.
perfect sense.
Yeah.
So,
So everyone needs to ride horse and buggies from now on, great, I get it.
yep, and then we have to do increased expenses, because then you have to have somebody to clean up the. That was a job back then.
That's
I'm
free
guessing
fertilizer.
that Steve does not want that job.
Oh, that drawing?
He probably assigned it to Warren or Pete, so.
This drawing,
People be out looking for the fertilizer for free, they'd be excited.
this drawing is existing, so it's showing just what's there, so there's no problem with interpretation of it. This other drawing, this was just a concept to show what might be done. And so it's critical that that word, everybody recognizes that word concept.
Okay, so
That,
what is the difference between the two?
so this one is showing the existing.
Actually.
So it shows all the buildings that are there, it shows where the well is currently, and what the setbacks are for it. It shows where the septic tanks are currently and the dry wells currently, and how, except for the town hall, they're all within the sanitary setback.
And the
We
same
have to
thing,
fix all that.
same thing with the green over there, that's the well for the church.
Yeah,
So
this is the
same
well for the
requirements.
church. So you've got the same, they have the same draw.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got the same thing. So this 62.5 feet, you can't have any septic piping within that distance.
Okay.
And outside of that, between the 62.5 and 125, you can have septic piping, no other septic components. No tank, no dispersal area.
Just piping.
But you can have piping as long as the piping meets, and there's a special type of piping, and it has to be pressure tested.
Except for right now, there's a septic system
Oh, right,
in
yeah,
that
there it is,
particular
right
area.
there, there's a septic system right there, there's
Yeah.
a septic tank right there.
There's a lot to untangle, that's the challenge.
Would you be able to email me both of those?
Yeah, again,
Yeah, they're public documents.
yeah. I just, on this one, I just wanted you to make sure that you understood the word concept, that this is
Yeah,
not,
thanks for pointing that out.
this was just,
It's in our imagination.
yeah. Where could you put a well?
Yeah.
You wanna figure out where you're gonna put the well. You don't wanna put buildings and parking and then try to figure out where the well's gonna go.
Sure, sure.
And you wanna figure out where that well is gonna go, so it provides you with the least limitation on what you can do with the rest of the parcel.
Okay.
You can have buildings inside this sanitary protected radius.
Just not.
You just can't have septic tanks. Or,
So blue and green lines, no septic.
yeah, no septic over here, no septic tanks inside here. You can have the septic piping, but the tanks and effluent disposal area. So like here's septic tank and EDA location, TPT, but there's a little box that's outside of the 125 feet. This was the idea, was putting it under the pavement,
Mhm.
which is something that they do nowadays.
Hmm.
As a-
Put
as a-
chambers in the,
Hmm?
if you put chambers in the leach field, you can pave over it.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the people in town who's in that business said, yep, it's done all the time.
Mhm.
This is also showing other changes to the parking that would need to be made. DOT had said that would be a condition of getting a second driveway permit.
It's complicated stuff.
See, right
Going
now,
over and over it for a
right
while.
now, we have 175 feet
We're wrong.
of pavement frontage on the paved road. And when you park in front of the annex, you're in the right, half your car is in the right of way. And when you park over here, half your car is in the right of way. So that, DOT doesn't like that. So that's why all of that needs to disappear, so that you actually have a proper driveway. You need a driveway as a transition from the highway to the parking area. So I sent you links to, and document before, so I can send you.
Oh, are you John Tappan?
Yes.
Oh.
The great John Tappan. So where are we at over? We now have more
Do you
information.
have my email?
We now have more information
Yes,
about what we're building, when are we going to?
asked about the parish house. I sent you the
Yes.
historic building assessment of the parish house, that,
Yeah,
like 100-page document.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I printed it out.
Good
Did
fun.
you read it?
um,
Doesn't feel very conservation-y.
I got it.
Double-sided, I'm sure.
It's interesting, it's interesting.
John, can you pop up our Gantt chart?
Schedule,
Yep.
you're talking about, yes. That's the next thing on the,
Oh, it's next thing on your list.
next thing on my list is
Okay.
schedule. You got me way off track here.
Sorry.
No, I'm blaming him.
Yeah.
He approved it.
I'm joking. This is it. Yes. So this is just a PDF from the schedule program, because as I mentioned before, the schedule program does not have a way of changing font sizes. So unless you get within about 4 feet of the screen, you can't read it. So I made a baseline from what we had before, and I updated it to today. And I put in just some estimates of task completion. So evaluate project delivery methods and select project delivery method. Originally scheduled to take 28 days. It is not finished, so I just said, oh, it's 75% done. Evaluate town building options. That's 100% done. That was the one where we went back to the previous committee where they had worked up that 3-page, here's the different options. Find appropriate construction examples. I just put in 50% done. I know that Andy had found companies. Update office building space program, this is me. That's going to take the previous space program that we had. Space program is what are all the rooms and how big are they? And also then looking at what we have in the daily building and what things we think we can change in the daily building. And the one feature of this that I haven't done to make it really presentation worthy is in the spreadsheet, I have a setup where you can pick different scenarios. Like if we want to fit all this into a one-story building, slab on grade, no basement. Or if we want to fit it into a one-story with basement. Or if we want to fit it into a two-story with basement. And the spreadsheet then divides those things up, and I haven't got that ready to show you. So after I put in what we've completed, I then said all the things that are uncompleted, those will progress starting tomorrow. And now you see we've got some red tasks here. And where we previously had a free slack of about 11 days, we now have a free slack of about negative 16 days. And this is all,
Oh, we need to get moving.
this is all in trying to prepare for the bond hearing presentation. For the bond hearing, which is scheduled for the last possible day that you can hold a bond hearing. And this is predicated on the idea that, or the plan that you have to have come up with that design and that cost that you can present as, here's the cost for the project. So we're in the red. The tasks that are waiting to be started is this summary task. The summary task is shown in this black. It has these subtasks underneath it. It's solicit, select, and hire design assistants. And that design assistance is whatever it's going to be. Is it an architect? Is it a construction company that's going to be acting as or a construction company, or an architectural firm that's going to be acting as a construction manager? Is it going to be a construction company acting as a general contractor? You know, what is it going to be? So that's the first thing, you decide what is going to be the delivery method. And then under this summary task, write and post an RFP or RFQ that has to be open for some period of time. You then have to select from that, and you then have to get them hired. And only after you've done that can you develop the preliminary design and cost. So what's not shown in here is we are actually doing some of this ourselves. This 56 days for develop preliminary design and cost was the idea that we've just written all of our requirements, and we have documents prepared that we then just give to the design assistant that has all of our, where the rooms are and how big are they, and what are the adjacencies required, and so forth. But we're starting to do some of that ourselves. So maybe this 56 days is shorter.
My concern is that if we haven't even started to reach out to firms, they're not gonna be able to meet with us the day we reach out to them. We're gonna need time, so I'm just concerned that we're not actively, getting on people's schedules.
Well, one of the things you need to do for that is that evaluate what companies have built things that have features that you want.
Right.
And contacting the towns or the entities they've worked with, and what was that working experience like.
Yeah, we've done
One
some
of
of
the
that.
primary things you're looking for that may be difficult to find is, what did you do to reduce the cost without affecting functionality?
Mhm.
or without having significant effect on life cycle cost. Are there companies that are producing things that are, different, but they are providing those attributes that you're really looking for? I didn't sign up for doing that.
No.
I don't know what the board's interest is, but I can certainly contact some of the companies in the area that have done municipal buildings recently that have favorable reviews. I know they'll come, I've been through this process before, I know they'll come talk to you. I am not sure what the timeline is right now. Some of these companies I know are
Really booked.
really booked up.
Somebody got the schedule.
You may talk to 5 different outfits who tell you that they couldn't possibly do anything within the next 12 months for you.
I feel like we need to get on the schedule, like find out who has some availability. and
They'll at least talk to you and tell you,
Yeah.
and they can pretty much answer for
Right.
their competitors as well. I mean, they're gonna know the general state of.
Yeah, that'd be great. Contact, reach
Yes,
out,
we'll
get
do.
started on looking at who we have choices of working with.
But do we need to decide what we're doing first? In terms of, are we doing an architect, are we doing a construction manager?
That's why I sent out those
And I think,
documents on
right.
construction delivery.
And I think
methods.
we need to talk to, I appreciate that, and you've done an awesome job. I think we need to talk to more than just John about how we decide this. I think we need some other opinions. So we have some different viewpoints, because I know everyone has different styles and things they like, and I think it's important to take some, there's people that do construction in town, there's people that do other
What
things.
did you get from what you read?
You felt very strongly about a certain way. I know I read that, and it was a while ago I read it, so I apologize. But there's different, there were some things that you were concerned about that I think somebody else might have different concerns about a different option, you know what I mean? So I think taking your opinion, taking some others, putting them together, and then figuring out what makes the most sense.
Oh yeah, when you go, that one I sent you, I think is fairly balanced.
Yeah.
When you go reading other articles that people have written, you really need to go and go look to see, what kind
Right.
of company do they work for?
Right.
And then you find out, oh,
And that's gonna be true
no
for
wonder they're recommending.
everything.
Yes.
I mean, the reason that we have, 20 different kinds of car dealers is because everyone has different things that they like and things they're going for. And there are some that are superior, sure, but I just think it's important for us to have an open mind and think about the best path forward. So,
Well, I think also it really is, there's significant variation in the construction delivery method.
right,
But I think that there may be equal, perhaps even greater difference from company to company.
right. That's why I
Um,
think deciding
and-
something based on, I'm looking at what you sent us.
In the company to company, you're not gonna find that out until you go looking at what's been built and talk to who is it that had it built and
Right.
what
So
was
we
their
need to
experience
branch
and
out.
so forth. Because, I know Scott and I both have brought up, the way I phrased it is, the company you hire is gonna be important to you. You need to make sure that you're important to that company.
Correct.
And one of the lessons that we have learned is that company size can make a big difference. And if you have a little project and you have a company you've hired that does lots of $50 million projects, and yours is
Right.
1.5, may not be very important to them. But that's not always the case.
And some companies are great at making sure all projects are done well, so.
I personally have an experience where the small company failed on delivery,
Mhm.
and the huge company that we thought would have no interest turned out, on a project I worked on, turned out to really have a company-wide focused interest on our project
Right.
and put incredible resources into it. And we lucked out like crazy.
Which is why I think it's important to be careful of the generalizations and to figure out who are the actual companies in our actual town, as opposed to the theory of it, who we're actually looking at and what are our choices. And then I think we need to get that information quickly so that we're in line.
But there's very definitely some companies that we could immediately contact who have favorable reviews, who come in on time, on budget or under budget. and-
Yeah, I'd like to reach out to
And
them.
I could, not committing or inviting them to your meeting or anything else, I can certainly reach out and put out some feelers to some of those companies, and first of all, get a sense for timeline. Are they gonna be taking on any new projects in the next 6 to 9 months? And at least get some general information like that for
I mean,
you.
it wouldn't even start until, we couldn't even start it till July, right? Because it's,
No, you need them pretty darn
oh, this
soon.
part, yeah, this part, yeah, okay.
So it's not the
But
construction.
the building
part,
part,
it's
right,
the-
so,
Yes,
yeah.
so of that list that you sent us, why don't you contact them and just see?
Oh,
Because that will narrow down the field as well.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to have a grant, but we have to, like, who the actual players we're dealing with. And then from that, it's a much easier list than an abstract list. to
And
figure
I
out
think
who-
one of the questions, and John alluded to it earlier, is to find out, okay, well, yeah, you said that you could do us, who's the team? Is it you?
Right.
Or is it, we're gonna get the A team, the B
I
team,
know.
the C team,
I know.
the D team? And I think that's,
I just think we have to be careful with that because when you say that, you're making assumptions about construction companies and the quality of the work. So I want to be very careful. I want to make sure we're
Well,
talking about it carefully.
talk about the elephant in the room, Valley Bretzinger did an excellent job in terms of dealing with the middle school.
Mhm.
For us, they did a terrible job.
Right,
So I need to know who that particular people are that we're gonna be dealing with.
right.
So until you meet with them and ask them those particular questions.
Yeah.
I
Let's
think
do
you're not
that.
gonna know.
And then get in line. Perfect.
So if you can contact those particular people. Yes, sir.
So I'm not hearing any enthusiasm or any volunteers for actually going to see what's been built and.
I am absolutely planning on doing that. I was planning on doing that. We were working on getting some schedules and I am happy to go to all kinds of places.
Well, I think we asked Andy to contact and see if Connor's available on Friday,
I'm
so.
happy to go to any other building. I just don't know which buildings to go to until we have an idea of who we can work with. I can happily then go drive all around looking at buildings.
and we can go individually and look at the buildings if there's just not a good group time. But,
And Andy and I have the same
It's-
daytime
A
availability.
couple that are close by that, obviously Barrington is a little bigger than you're interested in, but same sort of process. And obviously the same building, Farmington's Public Safety Complex is a good one that's close by that came in under budget, was done ahead of time. That was done by Groen in Rochester.
Yeah,
Mhm.
get a feeling for quality and craftsmanship.
There's a couple of others.
Oh,
Gilmington Safety Complex was another one, but
Mhm.
a little further afield.
So let's figure out who the companies are and then we can go see the buildings that those companies
The
created.
caveat when you say it comes in ahead of schedule and under budget is you need to look at what was it that set that schedule and budget.
Right, and is that the same now? Yeah.
And the construction manager process is not a competitive process.
Mhm.
So the construction manager working for you, if it's construction manager at risk,
Mhm.
it's construction manager working for you, they're giving you the price and they're giving you the schedule, but it's not a competitive price.
Right.
You've made the decisions by who you hired,
Mhm.
and once you hired them, when they go out to get their subs to build, that's competitive.
Mhm.
But the prices that they're giving you were not developed that way. So when it comes in under price and it's scheduled,
Right.
you gotta remember where the price and the schedule came from.
Anything else? We're past 8 o'clock.
We are.
I got one more thing.
Oh,
Next meeting,
yep.
that's the last
That's
thing.
what, yeah.
So we are.
Is the process either set it now or does Andy organize it?
Happy to sit now.
I have not been organizing anything to do with meetings.
All right, so,
We select board the 22nd, and I have it written down as the 29th. Is one of them or?
the one is a building select board we already picked, yes, correct. So our next building for meeting is the 29th.
Okay.
So we do have that one.
Yeah. And then we can, if we have more time next time, maybe pick the next ones. I don't see any other buildings.
Yeah, I forgot
Or do you want to
to
just put in the 12th right now?
We talked about doing the alternate to the board
Right.
meetings.
So should we just say a building committee on the 12th or not? Your face says no.
I was just trying to, do we actually have select board on Labor Day?
No,
Oh, is it on Tuesday?
it's on the 6th.
Okay. Why
It's a
is that
Tuesday.
bad?
Yes,
so Labor
Tuesdays
Day's
are
over,
not
right?
good.
You love Tuesdays.
Yeah, you wanna come out
So
on Labor
Labor
Day?
Day's open then.
You're so funny.
Well, the other thing is, before we had to sign manifests, you ladies are signing them anyways. Is there any reason to meet on the 6th? Since we are meeting every other Monday anyways.
Yeah, and so just make that a building committee meeting, you're saying, or are you saying don't meet that week?
Don't meet that.
And then meet on the 12th, I'm fine with that.
Maybe on the 12th for building select board and normal select board.
No, meeting on the 12th, yes, that would be that would be a building community meeting. But if we need to do something, it's a meeting, so.
Okay. Sounds good.
That's fine.
So the 22nd is a regular select board meeting.
Yep.
The 29th is a building committee meeting. We're
Okay.
skipping the week of the 5th. And
Okay.
on the 12th, it's a building committee meeting.
Can I ask if we're meeting on Halloween, the 31st?
31st, that's what?
Monday.
You're already in October?
I'm just asking because I keep wanting to know about it.
Is there some reason why you want to dress up as something?
No, is that, we normally meet on
Is that,
the 31st.
is that the other,
I think they tried to treat the night before.
No, they trick or treat.
trick or treating will not be on Monday, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, so,
The police chief will probably say it's on Saturday or Sunday.
Really?
Yeah, he will not do it on a Monday, I'm pretty sure. We've never done it on a Monday.
we don't normally do it on the 31st, it just happened to be that it worked out. Okay, so I just want to be aware that that's a,
Yeah, so the police chief will either say it's the 29th or it's the 30th. You won't pick the 31st, I'm pretty sure.
So we will be skipping the 5th, and we will not be rescheduling the 5th on the 6th, as it
Correct.
stands right now.
So, but if you have something urgent, we will deal with it on that.
Just, and I can't see if that paperwork for the police officer has been signed or not.
I signed it.
If it hasn't, please,
Realize
one of the
it.
rest of you decided.
one of the rest of them.
Need a quorum.
I like my work bag.
You just need two.
Nope, that's a pointer. The pointy stick. I have a red. Probably not the right computer.
Are we having pen issues again, Ms. Hawthorne?
I currently have my work bag with me, and I have about 50 million Expo markers, and a red bag, and
A red pen with a
a
pointer.
pointer.
That looks
that's
like
what I have.
something that's very dangerous. You could pull that in the eye with that.
It also helps me point at things at the top of the board, because I'm very short.
Don't you need you need like one of those laser pointers or something?
Are we all done?
No, we're talking about other stuff.
I would love to, I'm gonna dinner.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
I.
Motion passes.
Yeah, chair. Let's, let's open it over here, so